Hey, good afternoon, fellow history lovers. This is Historical, and today I thought I would take you on a trip back to 1955. This story is about a boy named Emmett Till, and it's titled The Crime the World Could No Longer Ignore. There were moments in history when something breaks so publicly, so violently, that pretending ignorance is simply no longer possible. Before 1955, many Americans could claim they didn't know. Hey, I didn't see it. Hey, I don't even understand what's going on. But after Emmett Till, that excuse completely collapsed. Let me tell you about Emmett. He was a 14-year-old boy. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't a criminal, and he wasn't a revolutionary. He was just a boy. And what happened to him did not happen in secret, and it did not happen by accident, and it did not happen without witnesses. This is not a story about a simple misunderstanding. And it's not a story about a quote unquote different time. This story is about power and what happens when cruelty is protected by silence. This is the story of Emmett Till. Emmett Lewis Till was born in Chicago in 1941. Chicago was segregated just like everywhere else, but it was not Mississippi segregated. In the North, racism often hid behind housing lines, access to jobs, and quiet exclusions. But in the South, it was enforced openly and with violence. Emmett was known for joking, laughing, teasing. He was 14. Emmett liked candy. Emmett liked telling stories. He even liked wearing a ring that had once belonged to his father. The thing about Emmett is, and this is important, he also had a slight stutter, and it's the result of childhood polio. And sometimes he whistled to overcome it. In the summer of 1955, Emmett desperately wanted to visit relatives in Mississippi. Of course, his mother, Mamie Till-Mobley, she hesitated because she knew Mississippi. Before he left Chicago, she warned him carefully and not in a gentle way at all. She told him, forceful, do not argue. Do not joke with white adults. Do not look at white women. Do not smile too long. And do not speak unless you're spoken to. She didn't say these things because they were right to say. Of course, they weren't right. But she said it because they were necessary to survive in Mississippi. And Emmett promised, I'll do those things, Mama. And Mamie let him go. Emmett arrived in a small Delta town shaped by cotton fields, heat, and rigid hierarchy. And in the small Delta town, everyone knew their place. And everyone knew the cost of stepping outside of their place. On August 24th, 1955, Emmett and his cousins went to a small grocery store. The lady behind the counter working was Carolyn Bryant. And what happened next would be argued over decades. Some people said Emmett whistled. Some said Emmett simply said goodbye. And some said nothing at all. And what mattered was not what happened, or what he said, did not say, or if it was the whistle. What matters is what he was accused of. Because in Mississippi in 1955, being black and simply having an accusation was enough. Jim Crow did not need signs everywhere. Jim Crow, it lived in expectation. It lived in fear, and it lived in what everyone knew. A black boy was not allowed to make a white woman uncomfortable, even if it's by accident, and even by rumor. And remember, violence in this place was not spontaneous. Never. Violence was used as a corrective measure, and everyone understood that. So as the day went on, the accusation spread, and with it came certainty. Not certainty of guilt, but certainty of consequence. 4 days later, just after midnight, a truck pulled up to Emmett's great uncle's home, and two white men stepped out. One was named Roy Bryant, and the other was J.W. Millam. Both these men carried guns, of course, and they demanded the boy. They demanded they give over Emmett. And inside the house, panic was spreading quickly. Emmett's relatives, they begged. They offered the men money. And J.W. Millam replied coldly. He said, "You can't buy your way out of this." And the two men dragged Emmett from his bed in the middle of the night. No warrant, no arrest, and no protection at all. He was a 14-year-old. And what followed was not impulsive, not at all. It was not rage. It was deliberate. This 14-year-old boy was beaten for hours, tortured, interrogated, and then he was shot. There was a cotton gin fan, a big industrial heavy fan. The two men tied it around his neck, and his body was thrown into the Tallahatchie River. And remember, this was not about justice. This was about sending a message. When Emmett's body surfaced days later, it was barely recognizable. This poor boy's face was absolutely crushed. One eye was gone. His skull completely fractured. A 14-year-old boy. Mississippi officials wanted a quick burial. Of course they did. They didn't see anything wrong with what happened. They wanted a closed casket and silence. But Mamie Till said, hell no. Mamie Till demanded her son be returned to Chicago. And she made a decision right then and there that would change history. She ordered an open casket. Mamie said, "Let the people see what they did to my boy." Thousands of people showed up to Emmett's funeral. Thousands. Thousands of people filed past Emmett's open casket. Some people fainted. Many people wept openly. Photographs of Emmett were published in black newspapers across the country. They could not be explained away anymore. This could not be debated any longer. This wasn't a rumor. By showing his face, it was evidence. Evidence of what happened, and all of America saw it. And then we get to the trial of Bryant and Millam. This trial lasted 5 days. Of course, in Mississippi in 1955, the jury was all white, and it was all men. Any witness that dared to come forward was, "You saw what we did to the boy. Wait till you see what we do to you." Testimony was twisted. And after just 67 minutes of deliberation, 1 hour and 7 minutes, the verdict came back. Not guilty on all counts. One juror later said, and I quote, "If we hadn't stopped to drink soda, it wouldn't have taken that long." The two men walked free. They were protected by the law. Months later, safe from retrial, Bryant and Millam sold their confession to Look magazine. The two men admitted everything. They told their story step by step. They were paid for it. They showed no remorse. They knew the system would protect them, and it sure as hell did. Emmett Till's death did not create the civil rights movement, but it did ignite it. It lit it. A young woman named Rosa Parks would later say she thought of Emmett Till when she refused to give up her seat. The movement, the civil rights movement, gained a face. It gained a name, and it showed the cost. Emmett Till did not change the law that night in Mississippi. The poor boy never saw justice. Emmett did not live to become a symbol. That was done to him. He didn't ask for it. What changed the world was not the crime. America had tolerated crimes like this thousands of times before. What changed the world was this crime was seen. Mamie, his mother, stood before a nation and refused mercy for its conscience. Mamie Till-Mobley, she didn't shout. She didn't call for violence. She didn't ask for revenge. She asked for witnesses. Look what they did to my boy. Witness this. Don't look away. See, Mamie understood something history teaches us again and again. Evil survives best in private. Cruelty needs the darkness. And silence is not neutrality. It's being complicit. It is protection. By opening that casket, she forced a country to confront what it had normalized, excused, and buried. She didn't do it with rhetoric. She didn't do it with ideology. She did it with her boy's face. Emmett Till did not die because the system failed. He died because the system worked exactly as it was intended to. And his mother broke it by refusing to let it hide in the dark. That is the uncomfortable truth history does not soften. This story is not about the past. It's about what happens when power believes it will never be challenged, and what happens when it finally is challenged. You see, this has always been part of the story. We see it today in our news cycle. Let me leave you with this. In the grand theater of history, the world does not change when monsters act. It changes when the living refuse to look away. I am Historical, and I tell history stories that refuse to be forgotten.